Long ago, in a quiet kingdom wrapped in winter snow, the queen walked through her garden with the prince she loved more than anyone. Prince picked a single red rose and placed it gently in her hands. When she touched it, a thorn pricked her finger. 3 tiny drops of blood fell onto the white snow. She paused, watching the red melt into the white, and whispered a wish. For a child with skin as pale as snow, lips as red as roses, and hair dark as midnight. Her wish arrived sooner than anyone expected. A baby girl was born, soft, radiant, and calm as the first snowfall of winter. The king and queen named her Snow White. The palace burst into music, laughter, and celebration. Everyone adored her. But happiness can vanish as quickly as snow in sunlight. One harsh morning, the king's jealous brother stormed the castle with his army. The true king and queen were taken prisoner and locked deep underground. Snow White's uncle and his wife claimed the throne. The warm palace turned cold. The new queen couldn't bear Snow White's beauty or her kindness. She forced the girl to scrub floors, haul water, clean endless halls, and often left her hungry. Still, Snow White never let darkness into her heart. Every night, she whispered prayers for her parents. One evening, an old soldier loyal to the true king leaned close and whispered, "Princess, you must run. Tonight, the forest is the only place you'll be safe." With quiet bravery, Snow White slipped past the castle gates under the pale moon and disappeared into the snowy night. She ran until tall trees surrounded her, and the forest swallowed her footsteps. Owls watched her from the branches. Cold wind stung her cheeks. She kept going, alone but determined. At last, she found a tiny wooden cottage hidden among the trees. Inside, everything was small. 7 chairs, 7 plates, 7 little beds. Exhausted and starving, she ate a little bread and curled up in one of the beds. Later that night, 7 dwarfs returned from the mines, lanterns glowing. They froze at the sight of a young girl sleeping in their home. When she woke and told them everything, the attack, her parents, her escape, their stern faces softened. "Stay with us," the eldest dwarf said. "We'll keep you safe." From that day on, the cottage became her refuge, full of songs, warmth, and the kind of love she hadn't felt in years. But far away in the stolen castle, the false queen stood before her enchanted mirror. "Mirror of shadows, who holds the beauty of this land?" The glass shivered and whispered, "Snow White still lives." Jealousy twisted her heart. She disguised herself as an old woman, crafted a bright red poisoned apple, and set off toward the forest. When she reached the dwarf's cottage, Snow White welcomed her kindly. "Take this apple, dear child," the old woman said. "It will bring you luck." Trusting and gentle as always, Snow White bit into the fruit. The apple slipped from her fingers as she collapsed to the floor. The dwarfs found her still and silent. No breath, no heartbeat. Grief crushed them. They laid her in a glass coffin, surrounded by wildflowers. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months. Yet Snow White looked as if she were simply asleep. One morning, a prince traveling through the forest noticed the shining coffin. He stepped closer. Drawn to the peaceful girl inside, he asked the dwarfs if he could take her to his kingdom to honor her. They agreed. As his men lifted the coffin, one stumbled. A tiny fragment of the poisoned apple fell from Snow White's lips, and her eyes fluttered open. The prince rushed forward. "You're awake," he whispered. Snow White blinked, confused but alive. "Who are you?" Someone who hoped every day that you'd return, he said. Joy swept through the forest. The dwarfs laughed and wept. Snow White smiled for the first. The prince brought her home, freed her parents from the dungeon, and banished the false queen forever. Peace returned to the kingdom. In time, Snow White and the prince wed in a celebration filled with bells, flowers, and light.